Oh, hot. Welcome to the 3D Animation Hub. For those of you that don't know, I'm Brian. I'm a professional 3D animator. I make weekly animation videos, and in this video we're going to be doing a Q&A. Because as some of you already know, I actually can't access my Maya. I can't open it. I can't uninstall it, so I can't reinstall it. I got in touch with a friend at Autodesk, and they're gonna try and help me sort it out. But so in the meanwhile, we're gonna have to do something like this, where I don't actually touch Maya, but we do talk about animation. So let's jump right into it. All right, we got this first question coming in from Benjamin. Benjamin asks, do you work at a studio, and if so, which one? Yes, I work at a studio. I don't know if I can tell you the name, but it's a studio that uses Blender, and they've made feature films previously. One of them is on Netflix. It's called Next Gen. The project I'm working on is feature level as well, and we're using Blender to make that. All right, Imad asks, what makes a rig good for animation? Now that's a good question, and Imad, I think you've asked this question before. I just haven't had the chance to make a video about it. So there are three things to answer that question. One is preference. It honestly depends on your preference of the rig. If you find it easy to work with, it doesn't fight you every step of the way. Number two is if it's light. So you want the rig to be light, because if it's too heavy, it'll be slowing down your workflow, and you'll have to keep play blasting to see what it looks like, and it'll just slow down the speed of your animation immensely. And number three is a lot of controls. Now I know that kind of contradicts the second point, but you want a lot of controls that are well optimized, so even though you have control, it doesn't slow down the rig. So for example, it's really nice to have controls around the forearm area, around the bicep area. So when you're creating arm movements, you can bend these and create a nice arc for those like fast movements. That and a bunch of other like extra controls in places like the leg, maybe something for breathing, or just controls that will make your life easier when you're trying to create like realistic animation, but not to a point where it's too bearing on the rig and too bearing on your computer where it slows it down. Hope that answers your question. Okay, Vinod asks, what things should we keep in mind to get fluid transition between one pose to another when there is no stop in body movement? I mean, there is a third pose after hitting the first pose to the second. That's a hard question. It's not something I can just answer with words. I kind of have to do like a 3-hour like workshop or something where like we go through the entire animation. I explain my workflow. But to keep things smooth, you generally don't want it to be too slow, so it's too floaty, and you also don't want it to feel like it's going pose to pose. In TV, it's a lot of like in TV production, it's a lot of pose to pose, where the character hits a pose, settles here. So for example, like this is one pose and this is another pose. So the character will go pause, but like he doesn't stop. The character doesn't stop. You slow down into it, and you have some moving holds. But in the case you're mentioning, where there's like 3 poses, I guess the best way to go about it is to slow down the second pose, and as you're slowing down, go into the third pose. But what you want, so this is pose 1, this is pose, oh this is gonna be so hard. So this is pose 1, this is pose 2, this is pose 3. You want to arc into your second pose, arc into the second pose, slow down, and then arc into your third pose. So I'm going arc down, then arc up. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But you want to keep like an arc in between your poses, and don't stop the pose, but have a slowing down. You could also add some secondaries as well. Secondaries really help to make the character feel alive, so it doesn't feel like the character is just hit a pose and stopped. So I hope that helped. There's a lot more that we could talk about, but we're gonna go ahead and hit another question. So Omi asks, when you first plan your animation, how can you choose a key pose when, let's say, the arm is on the extreme on one frame and the hips are on the other frame? I'm not sure if I understand exactly what you're asking, but if you're talking about blocking and setting keys on different parts of the body, and as you guys know, blocking is in stepped. So if you have a key on frame 1 on the hips and another key on frame 6, the hip's not going to move until frame 6. But if you have pose, like a pose on the hand on frame 1, frame 3, and frame 6, then the hand will be moving like this without the hips moving, then the hips would move. If that's what you're asking, then what I do at least is I set keys on everything except the world control, and go to the next pose and set keys on everything except the world control and go to the next pose and do the same. So this way, when you're in step mode, everything moves at the same time. So that's one way to go about it. Alright, so those were YouTube questions. Now let's jump into some Reddit questions. We got Reddit user Akalib asking, is there a big learning curve from Maya to Blender? Kinda. Like, it's not huge, especially with 2.8. So for example, I learned how to be an animator with Maya, but now the new company I just moved into is using Blender. So I'm about 3 weeks in, and I feel like by about 3 days I was already working on a walk cycle. So I was able to, you know, get on my feet within like 3 to 4 days of like working, messing around with Blender. And now it's been about 3 weeks, and I can animate. I'm animating fine. But two things. One, I'm using a gaming mouse keyboard I set all the hotkeys on like the keyboard where it's kind of set up like Maya. Like I have like my W, how can I do this? I have like my WER just in like a row, and I try to like set everything up so it's like Maya, so it's like a lot easier for me to transition into it. Maybe I'll make a video on that keyboard and how to animate with it. But back to your question, it's been about 3 weeks, and I'm maybe at like half my animation speed, maybe like 2/3 animation speed. I feel like another like 2-3 weeks and I should be at like full Maya animation speed. So I'd say the learning curve is there. There is a learning curve, but it'll within a month you should be back like up and running. A month and a half you should be up and running again. He also asks, how is the industry? What did you do to get into it? The industry is great. You get to work with a lot of people that have the same interests as you, a bunch of nerds. And how I got into the industry, the recruiter at this company I want to work at came to my school's industry day, which is this event where they showcase our films. She saw my film, we talked. Then I decided to go to this VFX event, and she happened to be there, and we got along there. We talked again, became friendly with her, and she actually asked me, she's like, have you sent your reel yet? And I was like, you know what? I have not. I should probably do that. So I send the reel, and 2 days later I get a call for an interview at the same company. So that's how I got into the industry. It was about like 2 weeks after school. 2-3 weeks after graduation, I started as an animator. Now the same Reddit user also asks, do you work in a studio? Yes, a fairly big one in Toronto. Is it financially safe? Do you enjoy your work? Is it financially safe? How much money do I make? How much do animators make? It's not bad. It's like, so like you want to get into the industry, so maybe you might have to lowball yourself just to get your foot through the door, but after that, know your own worth. So get into the industry, get some experience, understand the pipeline and how a company works, understand what your duty is and how to help and better the company. But afterwards, know your worth. Don't lowball yourself anymore. Animators, I'd say you start around, in Toronto at least, I can't speak for everywhere, but in Toronto it's usually around 38 to 40k as like a junior, just straight out of school. And then you can work in the next like 2 to 3 years, you can make your way up to 50k, 60k. You know, once you hit positions like lead and supervisor, you can make your way up to perhaps 6 digits. I'm sure that there are some supervisors that make 6 digits here in Toronto. So it's like there's some money there. There's some money, and you won't get rich off animation, but you'll for sure have a comfortable living. So Reddit user Antonio Gracia asks, do you think it's possible to become a professional 3D animator using Blender as your main tool? For instance, my reel is 10 out of 10, but I don't know Maya. How would that play out? That's a tough one. The thing is, if you know how to animate in Blender, you'll probably have an easier time transitioning to Maya than from Maya to Blender. So, and if your reel is amazing, a company will. There will be some stigma a little if they know you don't know Maya. They might prefer someone who does know Maya. But so it's better. What I'm saying is it's better if you just learn the basics of Maya, so you don't have to let them know that you don't actually know Maya. So if your reel is good enough, just learn the basics of Maya, so there's no stigma, there's no, because like no company wants to train you if you have experience. So just go ahead and learn the basics of like 3D animation in Maya, so you're not like forcing the company to have to make like a hard decision, be like, do we hire someone who's like okay and knows the program, or do we hire someone who's really good but doesn't actually know the program, and we're gonna have to teach them for like the first like 2-3 weeks and we're gonna fall behind. It's just like, don't do that to yourself. Learn the basics of Maya, because right now 9 out of 10 companies, or more probably, like 15 out of 20 companies are that's less. Like 19 out of 20 companies are using Maya. So just at least learn the basics of Maya. I think we're gonna end it there. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know it's not what you're really used to, but I can't really access my Maya, so this will have to do. If I still don't have access by next week, I might do something like maybe like a film review, or go over an animation I've done in Sync Sketch and just like talk about what I was thinking when I did that, or you know, maybe something like that. Let me know down below if you have any suggestions. And before we end the video, I just want to give a thank you to my beautiful Patreon. Go something like that. Thank you so much for your support. And with that being said, happy animating, and I will see you guys in the next video.